we are back after the Christmas slash New Year's slash end times break. How y'all doing,
Yeah.
everybody?
I'm good.
Good. Yep. Doing well, thanks.
Excellent.
Refreshed and invigorated to find out what great things have been happening in L5R.
It
All good
is-
things, I hope, right?
I think so. I hope so, at least. We've come back to some, we've got a ton to talk about, like a ridiculous amount of stuff that we could cover. We put up our much requested review of the Crab Pack, didn't we?
Yes.
That is
yeah,
up
that's
now.
up there.
So you can a lot of my thoughts and some of other people's really
Although-
truly cutting insights.
We need to go back and fix one of them.
Yeah.
Because it got errated or the rules changed or something.
Yeah, my commentary on the engineer was based on the fact that she didn't work, and now she does. So that was
100% improvement. Awesome.
Yeah, she's a lot better than she was, but I'm just
Oh yeah. Because she didn't turn cards face up originally.
she didn't do anything. She put them in the province, and it was basically useless on a 5-drop. It was insufficient value for what you were paying for. So yeah. So So what else has happened? The true pile of news, Baz. Run us down. What's been going on?
Okay, so the main things, there's a bunch of new stuff that's come out that we haven't properly got to look at. So Crab Pack, Dragon Pack, and Lion Pack had come out before that, but we still hadn't really got grips with it. Open Rolls that had come out, I think last we talked, but still we haven't fully seen the impact of that. Tyler brought out an updated restricted list and brought out a banned list, which was pretty big. And rolled out a few rules changes to kind of tweak things and streamline a bunch of things. And then we've seen a bunch of unfortunate shakeups in FFG. For the most part, that didn't impact us as L5R players. So we know the direct impact that we're aware of, the RPG area, the staff that were permanent within FFG are gone, and now it's going to be run by external contractors, I guess we call them.
Freelancers?
Freelancers, yeah. But we know that the freelancers were, like, the staff in FFG were more coordinators, and the freelancers were doing a lot of, like, 90% of the work. So that's probably not going to impact the RPG too much. Katrina is back, which is fantastic news as far as I'm concerned. The big loss that I'm aware of is that we lost Wade. Now, many people wouldn't be aware of Wade, but he was the guy that designed all the promos in the background. So, I mean, presumably someone will pick that up afterwards, but I have to say, I thought he was doing a fantastic job, and I think it'll be a real loss to see him go. But compared to some games and some player bases, we've gotten off really, really lucky. My sympathies go out to the Destiny players who, just had their entire game cancelled. Although I think Manny kind of saw the writing on the wall. And then before that, the Game of Thrones guys got their last expansion, which apparently wrecked everything. Yeah. But this leaves L5R as the last competitive LCG for FFG. And yeah, I mean, FFG have the LCG, so it's the last competitive LCG in the world.
Last game standing. There are other LCG-esque games still coming out, but legally distinct from LCGs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And obviously FFG have other LCGs like Arkham Horror and the new Marvel one, but they're not competitive, they're co-op, and I mean, fantastic games. But
yeah,
so yeah, lots
times of turmoil, interesting times, folks, interesting times. Always a bad thing. So it's been a bit of a time of turmoil. I mean, the open roles, we've long advocated for that, and it happened, and we didn't really get to comment on it.
Well, we haven't had any. I think there's only been one event with it so far. There was one small US event had open roles. So we haven't had a chance to see big events to see what the impact is. I'm delighted. I have to think, like, it. I definitely had advocated for it. I know I wrote an article with all the fors and against, and I am enjoying trying to build decks, having a full range of roles. It is to a certain extent intimidating because you have access to everything and you have to kind of work out what best to go for, and you're never quite sure what your opponent could be playing. But that has, for me at least, enlivened the game and made things a lot more interesting.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were concerns that people would narrow into one or two. And from that small event, there was some comments that did happen, but that happened at the top tables. And if you actually looked at the event, the lower tables, like the mid-range or the bottom tables, they were playing crazy wild decks from whatever role that they thought they wanted to try out, which is exactly what we predicted. That there's in theory there's always going to be a top role in theory there's going to be a top deck for every clan, and part of that deck is going to have a role. And now you might have a 1 or 2% difference between that and the second deck, but there's always going to be a top deck and there's always going to be a top role. But free roles means that you can have more meta choices because maybe a certain role is better against a certain clan, and you can play more fun decks. You can break out all these cards that we've been paying for all along, that for in some cases we haven't been actually able to play in a competitive event for years because we didn't have the right role. All of a sudden we have all the options, and it's only a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But it's wild. One thing I think maybe we'll look at as we go on with this is what decks are out there. But I have to admit, I have no idea what the meta environment is. Like, I was listening to the Jade Throne guys. They've got some ideas. They've obviously been testing. But the reality is they've been testing within their own kind of meta, even if that is probably the Discord meta. But, you're always going to have wildcard players, and we're in a kind of discovery phase where you can build exciting new decks and you can look for new interactions and, stamp your name on some of those decks. It's a fun time to play.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely a time of the card pool's as big as it's ever been. The choices as big as it's ever been. So that's all a good thing. And then we get hit with a ban and a restricted list,
which is an even better thing.
Yes. So the card pool narrows again suddenly. So we had a bunch of cards banned. I think nearly all of them justified to an extent. Yeah. Like, I mean, we've been like, since the game came out, we've been banging the drum about Charge being, needing to be taken out behind the shed and shot. So
yep.
it's good to see it event actually happen, and that dropped just before Christmas. So we have a number of cards that are gone. Guest of Honor, who was just horrible. Charge, Isao Tadaka, who made his way through 3 or 4 nerfs completely unmolested. Karada District, which Crab views terribly. Master of Kishitoshi, which again is just massive denial. Kanjo District, which is horrible to fight against. Trojan's Curse, which had weird interactions with the removal of the Fate Phase. Yep. Or not, the merge of the Fate Phase and the End Phase. The Hidden Moon Dojo, because again, overpowered. And Mirumoto Daisho, because people hate that deck. So yeah.
What? Made no sense.
People hate playing against it, Baz. It's like, it's just what...
Yeah, that's fair. No, I mean, I understand the reasoning behind it. I felt it was kind of a poor time to kick Dragon, especially because that deck hasn't won any events. It requires an incredible amount of setup to get going. But, fair enough. If it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. And then you had a bunch of other stuff hit the restricted list. Large numbers of cards. Some stuff taken off it, which I thought was interesting. A lot of orange cards
went on.
Yeah, a lot of orange cards went on because, hey, they were worried about it. I mean, Toshimoku going on he's generated so many complaints and annoyance that I can understand that getting on. Mark of Shame, just because it didn't have many answers. Yeah, I think it's kind of weird.
I kind of disagree with the Mark of Shame one. So I always saw Mark of Shame and what's that honor?
Soul Beyond Reproach.
And Soul Beyond Reproach as kind of mirrors that all seem to typically get played in the same deck. So you pick the air roll and you pick one or the other. And I think the argument against Mark of Shame is that as a attachment that triggers immediately, it's got no counterplay. You can't destroy the attachment because it's already done its work. It's not an event, so you can't, you can't voice of honor it. But I always felt that that was the point, that you needed a way to deal with voice of honor, because you need to have something that will dishonor someone that can't be stopped by voice of honor, so you can turn voice of honor off. And I have to admit, Scorpion have a lot of restricted cards already, and Crane have very few. Although obviously we've seen the Magistrate Station and Toshimoka going on. So personally, I would have flipped it. I would have gone the other way, but I mean, I can understand the reasoning at least.
I think to a certain extent, Crane are the winners of this restricted list. Because stuff did go on. Like Magistrate Station is a big one to go on. Toshimoka is a big one to go on, but they didn't
Steward
get
Law came off.
Yeah, Steward Law came off, so they didn't get dismantled, or like the wrench taken to them as much as Phoenix or Scorpion had. I mean, I still think Phoenix and Scorpion are going to be good plans, but I think Crane came off kind of the lightest in some ways.
Yeah, so I mean, Policy Debate was one of their kind of favorite restricted cards that they'll have to consider. And they can no longer Magistrate Station honor Toshimoka to straighten them again, because both of those cards are now restricted. I think that's what they were hitting, but you can still play Toshimoka if you want. You can still play Magistrate Station if you're going to go that route instead, or all of those. It's just that one interaction, the one combo that's been kind of turned off for them. And honestly, the Steward of Law is absolutely fantastic. Tyler had been talking about how when he brought out Duel to the Death, he was worried that it was going to mess up the environment completely. It was going to be far too powerful. And we haven't actually seen an environment where you could play Duel to the Death and Steward of Law at the same time. And now we can. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily is going to be the way to go, or that it's going to be a super power combo, but it's there. It's an option now, which is very cool.
Yeah, there's an interesting Crab Berserker deck, I think, with maybe Out of Fire with Steward of Law and Duel to the Death and Duelist Training.
You splashing
Splash Crane, and you go Steward of Law, Duel to the Death, 2 Duel to the Death, 3 Duelist Training, and I think you play Keeper of Fire, and you can play a couple of interesting cards there, or you can play Water with it, and because for the always popular Fight On.
Yeah, and
it's an interesting deck because it gives the Berserker deck ways of really messing with your opponent during a fight that it only kind of currently has, and I think that could be kind of cool. Because you can get the Berserkers up to be very big if you actually invest in doing that. And most of the time it's kind of like, yeah, whatever, they're just big. What does that do for you? Actually, in this particular situation, this is pretty cool. So yeah, big changes, real shake-up of the meta. We haven't really had any events to distill any information out of.
Exactly,
yeah. So, given we're talking about meta, and the upcoming Clan War set is coming out as well, so we're going to change stuff up. We're going to take a look at some of the decks that are coming,
yeah? So we had a look at just some examples of decks. Now, these aren't necessarily like the best decks out there. These were just kind of some quick examples that we're pulling off Bushi Builder that just kind of give a reflection. Because the reality is, we don't really understand this meta. Like if you're listening or you're watching this on YouTube and you're coming here for guidance, we're not going to give you the correct answer on everything, but we're going to hopefully in this particular episode explore and see what we can see as we go along through it.
We're going to look at so one of the crab decks that's been popular is the kind of the Krabbits deck, the lots and lots of crab weenies deck out of the new Stronghold Kudenhida, using lots and lots of cheap characters. Like you're talking most of the characters cost 1 or 2 in some cases. The only characters that don't cost that, you play your Hideyoshi at 3 cost, and Unyielding Sensei at 3, and Steadfast Witch Hunter at 4, and then everything else is Funeral Pyres to sack them, Kuni Labs to pump them up, a bunch of cheap characters, cheap conflict characters, and just ways to get bodies out, and then those who serve to make to basically play kind of probably get you a discount of 4 or 5 fate a turn by paying a single fate, which is pretty crazy. So it just floods people out. All of the Cooney labs are just boosting everything up, making all the guys much bigger. You play rebuild to get your Cooney labs back at the key time. You play Cutenhita so that you can get an extra guy out. You use the unyielding sensei so that you can keep your Cooney labs in play and just basically flip another guy in. And it's a really nice little swarm deck, you know. And that's interesting because there's kind of two swarmy decks coming out now. You've got the Kravitz one and you've got the Unicorn one, which is already popular.
Yeah, and those who serve, you know, we may need a little bit, maybe a month or two, but it definitely is a consideration for a restriction or a ban. It looks super strong at the moment.
Well, so, I mean, I think we should probably let it win or nearly win the event first and then cut it. But I think ultimately that sort of discount is going to prove troublesome.
Yes.
It's just that is the way of these things. Yeah, it's playing 3 Shinjo Ambusher to shut down provinces very effectively. So yeah, it's a pretty huge it's a pretty huge discount, really, when it happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many good 2 and 1 cost crab guys who have kind of useful abilities as well. You get the Vanguard Warrior, the Student of Anatomies, the Shrewd Yasuki. All of those are good in the deck anyway. And then,
and I mean, the best case scenario, you know, you reveal 4 characters that you get all at a discount. You use the Stronghold, get another character, you reveal a discount, and then any unyielding senseis that you get, you know, you can get an extra guy there at a discount. So, I mean, that could be 6 characters played all at a 1 point discount.
Unyielding Sensei will only work off a holding of the or province of the holding in it. So you can't get two guys out of 1 province.
Okay, but it does mean if you get a holding, then you can stick a guy in that. But it does mean you can double Unyielding Sensei. It's not unique, right?
No, he's not unique. The interesting one is that's going to combo more with some of the upcoming province from the next set, which lets you put 3 basically 3 guys in a province.
Okay.
So that will be something else, which will be certainly
and
kind of
presumably the crab big guys who never die deck is still out there and is still going to be strong.
Absolutely. I mean, the problem with that is it's been chipped away. Its tools have been chipped away at. But there's some different. It's a different kind of deck to run now, and it's an interesting deck. I want to try this deck, and I want to try the Berserker deck, with the Fatal Duels, because I think that's kind of a cool different iteration sort of deck, you know.
Right. It looks like Justin needed a little bit of attention there.
Yeah. What's up, Justin?
Yeah. Oh no! I just got attacked by my cat. He's being very affectionate.
Oh, God love him. God love him. So yeah, so that's kind of, you know, us looking at.
I mean, that's fantastic. Like this like you've been working on a Berserker deck, which having played against, I can definitely see it's got potential. But to see this new Kravitz deck appear, and for those who haven't seen it, Mozzie, aka Jared Wright, has written up an article on it that we might put in some show notes if we ever do that. But it will, if you're in the Alpha War groups, it'll be easy to track down. And it's definitely worth a read when he's talking about this. But yeah, Crab have a new deck. Yay! And it's probably good enough for them to play it in competitive tournaments. So that's kind of awesome. All right, so next up, presumably Crane.
Absolutely. We have their Don't Play the Game deck, which looks to be, hey, you know, duel to death is cool. Let's have a go at this. So it looks like it's sort of a control-y deck running some of the chunkier characters: Tengu Sensei, Kikiri Yoshi, Doji Kwanan, Iron Crane Legion, Doji Kazunobu, most of the over half the deck's 4 cost. Rest of the deck is
you're looking at a couple of cheap courtiers, Brash Samurai, I guess, and then some of the big chunky guys. I mean, this is kind of a classic style Crane deck, and as I said, this isn't necessarily the be all end all. But I quite like the Warden of the Damned approach with this one. So when they are playing duel to death, if you refuse a duel, you're just going to die at the end of the conflict phase anyway. So it's all good.
It is some funky fun with that point of view. Also, it's got Crane have a ton of actually really powerful events and ways to make sure they get through. So that they've got Voice of Honor, they've got Duel to the Death, they've got the Spear Rushes Forth there. You've got some Soul Beyond Reproach, just a bunch of useful tools. And the restricted card is Magistrate Station, because if you're building a giant tanky character to keep showing up, Magistrate Station is superb value. So no Toshimoko in this dueling deck.
Yeah, but I definitely have seen people go for the Toshimoko build instead of Magistrate Station. So there are certainly different options in there and different directions you can go. But yeah, I like looking at the events of this particular deck. It's very characteristic of the Crane decks to be like this, where they've got a lot of one-offs. And they're just trying to get that right card for the right situation, but it's the kind of classic toolbox set where lots of cards kind of work really well together and play off each other.
And the strength of this one is going to be it's a tower deck that kills other towers.
Yeah.
So you have to respect that.
Yeah, and the fact that they have Voice of Honor, I think, is always going to be a big thing.
Yeah, huge.
Like honoring up your characters, which they're already great at with Way of the Crane. And this is a Seeker of Air deck, so it
Soul Beyond Reproach
does have Soul Beyond Reproach, just the two. Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's tons of ways to honor up. Honoring up your guys gives them more stats. Now I know people have talked about how if you're going for, you're spending to do that, but if like your Doji Challengers at 3 cost, you're going to get an extra +2/+2. That's pretty amazing. And then obviously a lot of your big guys are 3. Oh, some of them are 3. Quan and not Tengu Sensei. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's kind of I don't want to say that the Crane deck has massively changed or anything because it hasn't. The style is still pretty consistent, but they've been playing with a core set of great cards and then a toolbox of options afterwards. And you're beginning to see stuff like Akita's Final Stand. We've had the Spear Rush Fort. Moment Perfect Beauty I've tried and I haven't been particularly impressed with. But they have all of these different options and they're kind of able to play their own game. And I think most Crane players are happy with this style of deck. It's a mix of kind of cheap political guys that get some work done, so you can get your for shames with your Steward Laws. I love it. I've this deck is great. Now I'm not sure what direction a new style of Crane would go. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think they have the discard deck as well. The hand is the discard deck that basically pressures honor a bit, and then just discards tons of cards in your hand. And we haven't seen that deck emerge fully yet, and I think it's underestimated, that one.
It is, and we'll be looking at a line deck a little bit later that splashes Crane and pushes heavily in that direction. And I think if you're a Crane player and wanted to kind of try that route out, you'll be able to have a look at this deck coming up and see where that goes.
Absolutely. So yeah. Oh, we've also got a dragon deck. I'm looking at this monk one here.
Yeah. So I mean, Dragon aren't necessarily in a great place. So I mean, people still refer to this deck as Test, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like originally Kingsley put together this really solid good stuff deck. And then Anil sat down and played the hell out of it and made Test. But like the genius of Test was the refining of it. But these days people just call any deck with monks and a kind of mix of stuff Test, which I don't think is really accurate. But anyway, like this deck is back to the idea of just play some of the best characters you can. Make sure you have enough monks in there so you can Void Fist and
Hurricane Punch.
Hurricane Punch, and to help it out, use Seal the Dragon. Yeah, and I mean it's a good deck. It's not really like it's this version here is kind of made a couple of changes from where we would have been going before. So you got to put Ichihiro in, which is the neutral 3 cost from the Dragon Pack. That means guys with attachments can't get honored or dishonored. So it's a bit of dishonor protection, which is kind of cool. You've got Togashi Ishii from the last few packs that came out, and he's the disguise monk. You've got Iron Foundation stance and Wildfire Kick, but they're just small changes on what's already been there before. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent deck. So it's more to kind of be aware that this style deck is still out there. You could push it further with more monks. So as any reviews of the Dragon Pack will say, it was not a great pack, but there are okay Dragon cards in there, or okay monk cards in there. And, you know, because the monk selection isn't great, you can definitely leverage those. So, I mean, for example, the deck I'm currently testing is a pretty much all monk mantra deck. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending mantra deck, but with the extra monks, you can play an all monk deck and kind of go down that direction. So yeah, that's still there. That's an option. The next one that I wanted to have a look at is a Bushi Dragon deck by Miyamoto Rinosuke. I quite like this. Basically, it's taking some of it again. It's taking some great characters, but rather than kind of push it towards the monk direction, he's looking at the great Bushi we have instead. So, I mean, Katsuki Yukigimi, Miyamoto Retsugu is a classic. I love Hitomi. She's great. The new Miyamoto Daimyo that we got, Miyamoto Masahage, I think he's really good. 4 cost, 4/3 with 2 glory. That, you know, will honor someone up every turn, essentially. You have to have less than, if your opponent controls more. Yeah, you have to have less than your opponents in terms of characters. But for Dragon, with the style deck, that's not particularly hard. Classic Knit Master. Akodo Toturi, which not everyone has tried out, but I quite like myself. And this is obviously going with the Sashimono builds, splashing line. Now, I disagree on a couple of things. I personally like playing Keeper in this deck, so you can defend your honor. And I think he's kind of missed an opportunity for the line splash that he's gone for, because Lion Get this really fantastic card that lets them straighten. But yeah, the point with this particular Dragon deck is just to show that there are some really, really great options that you can take going away from the kind of core hybrid deck that everyone is familiar with and kind of used to. So there are other options out there. In service to my lord. Thank you very much, Akoda Hato. He's got my back. In service to my lord. I let all this in to make me seem smart. Yeah, so it's a 0 cost, 2 influence, which isn't too bad. Tactic card can be played from your discard pile, which is really cool if you've got a discard effect. Action, bow a friendly non-unique character and choose a unique character. Ready the chosen character. Put this card in the bottom of its owner's conflict deck. So, I mean, it's essentially a straighten effect, but if you've got a small keeper, for example, if you've got a keeper initiate that's just sitting there, 1/1, you can bow him to straighten your big chunky Yukuni, your big unique, full of attachments. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic option. I think Line have a real great array of cards, which we'll get to once we get into the Line side. I think there's so much potential to explore. I'm not necessarily saying Line have got a great deck out of it necessarily, but the splash potential I think is way up, and I'm very interested in playing around with that side style myself.
So the line one is there's a commander one and a
dealing with the courtier deck by Akodo T1. Yeah. Now I think it is possible for them to do a swarm deck as well, but we're not going to necessarily look at it here because I think Unicorn could probably do swarm better than them. Yeah, definitely crab.
And the deck is what you think it is. It's favorite mount. It's playing Spyglass, interestingly, Adorn Barcha, and then basically ways to move guys in, and then it's into Fan of Command. It's into ways to straighten their guys. It's like, just generally speaking, pretty clever stuff. a lot of the cards we were fans of from the last few packs that we thought were going to be good. So yeah, certainly interesting. And the other one to look at, which I think is the more interesting one, is the courtier one, which is using letter from the daimyo, the crane a conflict card which we discard cards from people's hands, political rivals, steward of law, and just kind of I think
Yeah.
abusing regal bearing, really, right?
Yep, exactly. And they got over here for more card discard and spies of court. So there's a ton of card discard. So, yeah. So this is like an Akodo T1 deck. Keep an eye on that name. A lot of pretty fantastic line decks turn up from him. But the other side of it with the commanders, like I have to admit, I think tactical ingenuity is absolutely amazing. Like being able to just like look at the top 4 cards of your deck and then pick an event and do that every turn, bonkers.
Yeah.
On a zero cost +1/+0 condition. It's not even like you can build a tower with like multiples of those. That one has the In Service of Our Lords and Up for Greater Glory is back in play. What I've been trying to do, and I have to admit I've struggled to do this, is I've been trying to play a commander and courtier deck. Because I do think Regal Bearing is busted, and I do think that Tactical Ingenuity is busted. And I remember sitting down with Justin many years ago and having him go through the dragon cards and go, this card is busted. I don't know why you guys don't win all the time. This card is busted. Don't know. And then he put them all into a deck and he went, this is a pile of shit. This is a terrible deck. So yeah, that was my experience when I tried to mix those courtiers and commanders. I just drew the commanders when I had courtiers, and I drew the courtiers when I had commanders. So yeah, getting that kind of balance right is a tricky one. So now these particular 2 decks went down one side, and I think that's super interesting. And yeah, it might mean that Lion have 2 kind of viable focuses in either direction that they could go to that look like they're pretty awesome decks.
I think Regal Bearing is so strong that it's going to get. I think it's going to end up getting restrict tested or something, because it's
if the Scorpion starts splashing on a regular basis, it'll definitely get restricted. That's the margin for cards getting restricted. Are the Scorpion splashing it?
Yeah, quite possibly. So that's Lioner going. They've got 2 good options. Phoenix battered around the place with the restricted list, battered with the ban list. What's left for Phoenix, Justin?
There's enough. The Charge Bird deck is, well, just the bird deck now, but it's still perfectly viable. I think the internal balance issues that Phoenix had, where Kyudnasawa was simply unquestionably better for almost any kind of competitive deck you could possibly imagine, I think that's shifted a little, to the point where I think there are certain decks now that you can conceive out of Isalamari Sado that are worth playing. Whether or not they'll kind of end up at the top of the heap is another question. But yeah, I mean, I think the big impact that the Kyudnasawa errata had, specifically on just Phoenix spell decks, is that it's now a requirement that you play a lot of spells if you want to make use of that. So the kind of the Phoenix good stuff mid-range power deck that was the dominant style before, and really the only high-level competitive Phoenix deck, because it played so few spells comparatively. It usually played kind of 14, 15 spells, I think, or it had gotten to that level by the end. The discard requirement on Kyudnasawa actually has a really huge opportunity cost potentially, and along with all the other hits that deck took, I think that deck is just basically dead now. However, going back to Fashicho and the bird deck, that deck was already playing in the mid to high 20s in terms of spells, and I think that's the deck that you are going to see more or less exclusively out of Kyudnasawa now. not necessarily because the kind of the Fascicho tactic is the absolute focus of the deck. I think the deck becomes much more of kind of a standard Phoenix Shugenja build with the power spikes that Fascicho turns can give you by cycling it back out with Oathkeepers. So yeah, I would expect to see that as one of the main. I would expect to see that as the mainline deck out of Kunasawa. Although that said, I think kind of there is a mid-range deck there that could potentially focus around honoring characters, because Phoenix now do have Dynasty characters that allow Phoenix to honor characters in military and political conflicts potentially. So with the new spell that's come out as well, the 1-cost air spell, I think it's an air spell, that gives you +3 glory and
Cloak of Night.
Makes you makes you untargetable. Yeah, Cloak of Night. Then there's solid potential there, but Kunasawa decks will now really have to look at running kind of, again, like probably low 20s at an absolute minimum of spells to make to diminish the opportunity cost of having to discard a critical card during a conflict. For Sawamori Seido, Dishonor is still there. There are options that it has that Kunasawa doesn't, like Sanpoku Seido as a province, which can be incredibly hard to break, if not impossible for a number of clans. So you'll have Dishonor. Again, you'll have the various kind of honoring shenanigans, and potentially a Bushi deck as well out of Sawamori Seido, because again, it's just focusing very, very heavily on honoring characters up and then making them very, very big. So yeah, there's still some stuff there for the Phoenix, but the cards that got banned absolutely deserve to be banned and 100% should have been. I mean, all the cards that got banned were just cards that stopped someone else from playing the game. Just basically took agency away from the other player, and like cards for that are just bad for any card game, and I'm glad they're all gone. The restrictions and erratas, definitely painful, but it's a short-term hit, but for the long-term health of the game, I think they're all good. I certainly have no arguments whatsoever with any of them. Just a little sadness,
And like the idea that we've lost cards doesn't really factor in the fact that we've gained cards, because when, for example, Charge was around, it was just so strong that you put it in decks. Now, once you can't play it anymore, there's maybe 4 or 5 cards that might fit in that option. So the card pool technically has contracted, but the viable card pool has actually expanded, which I think makes the game more exciting for me, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of one of the hidden things about these changes is that previously the game had been so tightly prescribed that the best decks were researchable and refinable, and we saw that fairly rapidly after each kind of pack was released. You would just simply have the best deck for a clan would be available out, and then that was it. Whereas now there's so much more to try and play through and play test through. First of all, it's a huge project if you want to definitively refine refine everything down to a single deck. But I think it also opens up an awful lot more room for player expression, where you can just play the style of deck that you want with the cards you really like, and potentially build something successful out of it. So yeah, that's a good thing. Like, I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about the bannings and restrictions.
Now, I will say that those bannings and restrictions, and actually we haven't mentioned yet that rotation has been pushed out slightly.
Yes, it has.
I suspect that these shakeups have, although it's been said that it was all about what the card pool looked like and that it was a little bit too small initially when they were going through it. I think really it's been this shakeup has kind of really changed things within the company. And if the budget wasn't there, or if there were kind of internal considerations, if they're still talking about doing it the year after, great. But it looks like a lot of this work is stuff that Tyler had been putting in for the new core. So this was work that was actually happening and is now being utilized, which is great.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of timing, if you were sending something off to be printed in China for, say, a Gen Con release, it would have been going out by now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think they probably hit their deadlines on redesign, and yeah, things got changed, and yeah, they just implemented the best alternative that they could.
Honestly, I think right now, there's the potential doom and gloom that are kind of thinking, is this game going to stick around? Personally, I think it is. But even if it isn't, even if we've only got a year left, the game is fantastic. The environment is, I think, probably one of the best ones that we've had so far. Like, if you're worried that the game is going to go in a year, this is the time to get in and play the hell out of it, because this year is going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, like that said, I mean, obviously, none of us knows the future. I'd be quite surprised if this is the final year of the game. I mean, as we said before, this is the one IP that FFG actually own outright. And licenses come and licenses go, and licenses can, they can get more expensive. You can have other companies bidding for them. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with them. But an IP that you own outright, I mean, you've spent a lot of money on it. I mean, if they've recouped their investment, maybe they cut ties there. But if you're still making money from it, if it's still a profitable revenue stream, then why would you not just keep producing and making money from it?
Yeah, and so some of the FFG guys or ex-FFG guys who were commenting on some of the Reddit threads were saying what a pain it was going through all the license stuff. So all that Star Wars and all that Marvel stuff that they're working with Disney, it's going to get them in good money, but it's going to cost them money. And more importantly, it's going to cost them effort and hassle. And there's going to be sign-offs and delays in productions. But an IP that they own, like every penny, every cent that they put into it increases the value of it. And it's only something that's going to grow for them. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Asmodee and understand the value that is in this IP. And I think it's something that they will want to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things, like, I mean, obviously, when you have a company that is shareholder-driven, and if it becomes very, very shareholder-driven and very profit-driven, then, there is the potential that even a profitable department can be cut simply to redistribute funds into a more profitable department. But I don't know. At the same time, you also want diversity in your products. Yeah, like I said, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But from what I have experienced and understand of the games industry, it would be very surprising if L5R got the axe. Yeah. So I hope I'm not eating my words in a year. But I don't think I don't think I will be. I don't think I will be.
I mean, the question is there still going to be a second core? Is it just down the line? Is it kicked down the road for a year or kicked down the road a bit more? And the big question for me is, what was coming up in the storyline is the clan war. And that ultimately should climax in the Day of Thunder. And I would be tremendously disappointed if this iteration of Alpha 4 didn't make it to the clan war and didn't make it to the Day of Thunder, because that's the World Championships that everybody who's a long-term Alpha 4 fan wants to be there.
It's a pilgrimage.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a World Championship. It's a pilgrimage.
Like, you want to be there, and it has to be a clan war that people feel like this is the event I have to be there for. And it has to be built as that. And I mean, I think if they stick the landing on that, this will be seen, whatever happens long term, as a success. That we got to have another Day of Thunder, and it was really cool.
I think
You know?
Tyler did a great job covering things, but seeing Katrina back again, really gives me a lot of faith in where the game's going.
Okay, on to Scorpion.
On to Scorpion. So El Scorpione, they haven't changed much, have they?
Oh, one of the nice things about Scorpion is that they have all of these options, and like there's never been a Scorpion deck really. What's actually been happening is you've got a bunch of different decks that like the players are able to kind of tune to their own particular preferences, which is cool.
John's holding out on us. That's what I know. He's got some true shenanigans being hidden out.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, he's got something waiting for us, and that we're gonna go there at some Sunday and get absolutely destroyed by something horrible. But yeah, looking like just like again, a little bit of Dishonored choke. Still display of power. Still Earth becomes sky. Kiriko, interesting. Yeah, mostly the standard. Hey, there's a bunch of amazing characters. We're going to play these. It seems thing, and the new Shoju is pretty good. I think he's probably pretty
crazy.
annoying to play against.
Yeah. He's super
incredible.
Good.
He's incredible.
So yeah, that's mostly what they're doing.
Yeah, he drops your opponent closer to backhanded compliment. Well, he drops your opponent close to backhanded compliment range while drawing you backhanded compliments.
Yeah.
It's gonna keep he's incredible.
Squeezing you out.
Yeah. So Scorpion did lose a couple of things, but they're still super strong and probably overall the strongest clan, I think.
Yeah.
I would say almost certainly overall the strongest clan.
They just had the best basic lineup of guys, and that's never gone away.
Yeah, as well as an axis of attack that most other clans just really don't have. Yeah, just simply can't compete on, to be honest. Yeah. So it's a powerful combination.
Just the horrors. All right. So you've got for Unicorn, you've got HMT Swarm, which is lots of guys making lots of cheap guys. Again, the key one in this one that looks to be abusing is those who serve. So
that card's going to get banned. Really
I
soon,
think so. I think it's going to get hit. Well, it should be allowed win something first, and then everyone should go. Yes,
ritual.
Definitely.
It's Dark Ritual for those who used to play Magic years in the long ago, and yeah, it's just a broken card, and it shouldn't exist. So,
and with 4 Greater Glory coming off the restricted list,
just for God's sake,
you gotta like Fan of Command. You gotta like a lot of the line splash there, and you gotta consider it, right? Have some of that in your deck, just a couple of good answers here, guys. Couple of bits of unpleasantness. Lots of cheap guys. You get your Wincept Yuris. You're just making lots of cheap dudes, getting in there, getting in your face. Oh yeah, it's a solid rushy deck. But the other thing, the slightly more interesting one, we were looking at there was one with the old Stronghold, the original Unicorn Stronghold, which is by most metrics terrible, but Fan of Command's amazing. So Fan of Command is going, hey, I'm super good. I'm happy being kind of, I'll just move this guy in and ready him. And that's pretty strong now. I think like Fan of Command we flagged when we saw it. And it's
was that in pack 5? Was that like the one good card in the pack?
I think it was. Yeah, I think it's the one good card in that pack. They were like, yeah, that's good. Oh no, For Greater Glory is still in the restricted list, isn't it? I'm not going mad.
No, I'm pretty sure For Greater Glory is off the restricted list.
It is off. Yeah,
it
is off.
It's off. Yeah.
We've already seen cavalry reserves for Greater Glory as a thing that happens. So
I mean, like, this is now.
It's a brave new world.
Yeah. So the it's another deck, kind of using a Chiro, using some mid-cost unicorn characters, and then it's basically a tower, and you just move your guy in and straighten him when you want to. So Golden Plains Outpost. I did not think I'd see you again, but there you go. There you go. Fan of Command is that good.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting, like in these cards, how we are seeing, I think, 2 cards in particular create archetypes all by themselves, and those are Fan of Command and Those Who Serve.
Yeah.
So interesting. I think Fan of Command is a really strong card that just enables a bunch of stuff. I think Those Who Serve is a degenerate card that is a real problem. So yeah, we're gonna. I guess we're gonna. It's gonna be interesting to see now what happens in the upcoming Cotes and Grand Cotes.
Something else that's interesting
What
is
rises.
we're seeing still a bunch of really powerful tower decks, but we're also starting to see more swarm decks.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we would hold off on hitting Those Who Serve, because if you hit Those Who Serve, you tilt everything back towards the tower decks again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and that might be why.
You see, like this is where I actually have a disagreement. So if the margin of difference between tower decks dominating and a balanced environment is Those Who Serve, you've got a massive problem.
You absolutely do.
yeah. You know, and vice versa. Like if swarm decks suddenly rise to absolute dominance because of Those Who Serve, well, then you've obviously got a problem. But yeah, I mean, like they're daring design choices, definitely daring design choices. But it's like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what does actually rise to the top and what do become the successful decks over the next few weeks, because it's as Baz was saying, it's a time of discovery. We really don't know what is going to be super strong out there, which makes walking into a tournament extra terrifying, because you just don't know what you're going to get hit by. But yeah, but we're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's a very different environment potentially. It's probably going to have a lot of the same elements still. The good cards are still going to be good, but a bunch of stuff that was really toxic to play against is out, which is nice. And hopefully we'll see some new degeneracy emerge, and we'll learn to rail against that.
Oh yeah,
complain against this stuff.
It's the circle of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a card game.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've kind of had a brief run through the environment. This is what we think might happen. We'll be prepared to be proven wrong about everything, but that's what we think is going to be good. And we've got a bunch of card reviews that we haven't done yet, or rather, we did Crab on the site, and we didn't do Dragon because Baz, you hated it so much.
No. Dragon got done.
Yeah.
But it was everyone that wasn't me, and they all agreed with me, so it was all good.
So all good. So really, the next thing I think we just skip ahead and we review Clan War when it comes out. Do it that way.
I if I get the time, I might go do some tidy up. But yeah, I don't think there's any.
Yeah, no big insights. So yeah, we'll revisit Clan War when it comes out, and we've got the other 2 packs that are making their way to us definitely from the first cycle. Like, when's Clan War meant to be out, actually? Should be kind of hashtag soon, right? And hey, they've stopped at least doing pre-order promos on the new packs. We think.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
In fairness, I mean, Clan War is probably not going to have a massive impact on the constructed one-on-one environment, just because so much of its card stock is dedicated toward multi.
We can just review the.
But that said, like there's so much to research and play and cogitate on for the time being that I don't think that's honestly much of a loss.
Yeah. So Clan War is first quarter 2020. Helpfully.
We are first quarter 2020.
We are currently, yes.
Yeah. Any day now then.
Absolutely any day now. And then we have the Dominion cycle that starts up. And then there's going to be... So that means...
Yeah, so we've had some super spicy stories coming out lately. So there was one by Spooky about the hair, and then there was one about Asako Suki heading down to Crablands and chasing after Attack. Is is it Spreading Darkness is the first pack due to come out. Looks like we're going to have a lot of fun Shadowlands stuff coming up. So this is
It definitely looks
good
like
times.
the preamble to either the Clan Coup or the Clan War Direct. Like it looks like that's where we were in the old game, and it looks like a lot of the same drums are beating in the background, but they're going to be coming in differently. So we're saying February for Clan War. Cool. That's something for us to review then. And the next event that's going to be, I think, of slight interest is Alex Watkins is running an AMA.
Yeah.
And the AMA is going to be on
Organized Play
on January the 21st on a live stream. And he's asking people to submit questions to a thread on the forums in the news topic. So he's looking for questions, and I think asking the right clever question might get you
what we should do
a mention.
Is we should contact John and get that list of proposed Kotai changes he had.
Absolutely.
And then ask each of them individually.
Yeah.
Would this be a good idea? How about this? Would this be a good idea?
Absolutely. Toss some of those out.
Yeah, because John had talked to a lot of players and had some really good ideas. Like, I think when you're on the ground with the events, you can kind of see where the issues are, and that, like, organized play don't necessarily have that kind of close visibility, which is why you often see a lot of changes after Winter Court, because FFG run one event really, and when they're planning for that event, they can often see issues that are going to happen that have been happening throughout the entire year. But yeah, you often see changes for organized play before and after Winter Court, ironically. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. That should be a fun one. AMAs occasionally frustrate me because often all the spicy questions get skipped. But I think Alex did one before, and I think he was pretty
he was less cowardly.
Yeah,
less cowardly.
Like Alex is one of the good ones. He seems to go out of his way to try to get things done for the players, and like hasn't forgotten that that's what it's about. That it is about organized play is all about getting the players to have fun. So yeah, I've got a lot of faith in him. We'll throw in some spicy questions and we'll throw in some soft ones for him, and we'll see which he answers.
Absolutely. Also, Rob Algren, aka Rob the Viking from our TO team goodness, is running a Hatamoto competition this turn, because the Hatamoto don't have an effect in the Dory race, and there's no prize for being a Hatamoto. So what he would like is if people submit stories of players playing with integrity, and kind of the most honorable player, the classic, the person who makes you come away from the game feeling better about yourself, to submit a story to him about them, and he's going to put together a list of kind of give out some mementos for those players, one from each clan. So
that's fantastic to see. Like the Hatamoto system, as originally intended, was fantastic.
Yeah.
But FFG didn't live up to their plans, unfortunately. They bit off a little bit more than they could chew in the end. It's fantastic to see Rob step in and make more of a deal about it, which it definitely is deserved.
Actually, I just thought there of a good question to ask Alex in the AMA, which is about Hatamoto and what it started out as, what it's become, what it's kind of fallen down to. Are there any plans to kind of reconceptualize it as it was such a cool idea at the start, and kind of basically try to bring it back up to what it originally was, or something different, or something really cool to make kind of a unique selling point again.
Originally, wasn't it much harder? You had to be undefeated and everything, wasn't it?
In the first 3 events, you got Hatamoto if you were undefeated, but everyone was basically playing with seal decks. Then what Hatamoto was you had to do really well. You had to be, I think it was the top
of Swiss.
Yeah,
I think it was top of Swiss, or if you weren't a Hatamoto and you made the final, then I think you got it as well.
Well, I'm not sure if it was like that initially for the first few events, because I got the impression that there were some events where, like, you needed to get
it was initially you had to go undefeated,
Okay. And then afterwards, it was just top of clan.
Then afterwards, it was top of clan, because you could go top of clan and not be undefeated, and there would be no Hatamoto. So I don't know. Maybe it's a long time ago. It's all a bit of a blur.
So I mean, that's pretty much what we want to talk about today. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and hey, if the Some Talk January 25th is when the Clan War pack is out, it's possible to have the spoilers talk about that then.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And hopefully we'll start seeing a few events. We'll begin to get an idea what the environment is.
Yeah.
And we'll play more games.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Good stuff. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. Just us getting back into it now. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy, everybody. Bye.